Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After you through the news you need to know about, we're going to the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. There's a lot to talk about in today's show. I missed last week's episode, so some of this stuff you guys probably have already heard for a while now, but we didn't cover it on last week's episode because there wasn't one, because I was sick. So bear with me here. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Byron Jones not expected, according to Mike McDaniel, to play for the rest of the year. We talked about this 1,000 times this season, obviously waiting for him to come back. Even if we made the playoffs, he kind of left the door open a little bit. But this report comes from Pro Football Rumors. It's not, obviously, it doesn't look like he is going to play. But even if we made the playoffs, I would highly doubt that he would even come back to play for that game. And I think, honestly, it kind of underlines a bigger problem, especially of this season, that because of the lack of creativity from a schematic standpoint on defense, which we've talked about at least a million times from Josh Boyer this season, this scheme relies heavily on players winning their one-on-one matchups. And because of the injuries to Byron Jones, even to Eric Rowe in this game, to Nick Needham, to Brandon Jones, which those are all huge losses to this defense. Because of the scheme, it's made Josh look even worse. And we just haven't been able to play good coverage defense at all because of it, because of the injuries. So, and again, because of the lack of creativity from a schematic standpoint, we just don't confuse teams at all. We don't confuse quarterbacks, which hurts the front seven, in my opinion, a lot. That's why the turnover numbers are so down from a year ago, is because of that. The sack numbers are down from a season ago because of that. And I know some people might have complained because I think the front seven has played really good football this season. And again, if the secondary and some of the coverage stuff was better, I feel like I think you can point to a lot of plays and a lot of games where we should have had sacks because of that. So, the whole fire Josh Boyer thing, I think has more than legs. Even Mike McDaniel has seemed frustrated with it, with him during this season. And I think it's a disservice to the personnel that we have, because I think we should have better numbers in areas than we do. Even some of the bonehead situational football stuff. The 49ers 2-minute drill before halftime, blitzing the entire team, all the Niners had to do. And again, against a backup quarterback, throw it behind the line of scrimmage, get first and goal. You can't do that. Make him make a throw. He's a backup quarterback. The lining up everybody on the goal line against the Chargers, which was a huge play in that game. Just stupid stuff like that is just, you can't do. Not to mention the fact that there is no creativity in this defense. The blitz stuff, it doesn't work anymore in the NFL, especially that specific look. Teams have just caught up to it. It just doesn't work. Every time we've ran it this year, 80% of the time we have a huge play against us. It just, everything about what Josh brings to the table, it just isn't good. He's had an awful season this year, and we've been paying for it in a lot of big moments. So again, if he doesn't have those guys and again, and another great point is if Kader Kohu wasn't playing as good as he has, then the defense would look even worse. And it would have been amazing to see those guys play together if the secondary was healthy, especially with the emergence of Kader Kohu. And, this stuff will be good for his development going down the rest of his career. But he's been a fantastic player for us, and he's played really good football. But, yeah, the Josh Boyer stuff has been terrible. For all the reasons I just pointed out, and especially with those losses, it's made him look even worse. And we've seen this with coordinators, especially defensive coordinators, leaving New England and trying to do it at different places. If you don't have a specific type of players that can run it, you need, we've seen in Bill Belichick's defenses. People forget he's had Aqib Talib, Malcolm Butler, who was good for a while there, Darrell Revis, and Stephon Gilmore there for many years. So it's not like he was doing it with toothpicks and paperweights. I mean, he had players that could run it, and you need those kind of players to run that scheme. So J.C. Jackson is another great example of that. So I would only fire him. I'm not saying that I think they definitely should if they can replace him with someone better. But just to fire him, I don't think. And again, I guess the argument against it is all the coaching staff people that Mike has brought to Miami has been great. So maybe, I trust him to make the right decision. So it's definitely something the Dolphins are going to have to look into for sure. That's one of the... There's a few things that this team clearly needs to improve upon and change. I think we're at that point of the season now that we can say, okay, this has to be changed in the offseason. This has to. Josh Boyer is one of those things, for sure. I hope they can get someone who's been around the league a while that's had a lot of success. We'll see if they can find that guy, because it's hard to become... the Giants got really lucky with Wink Martindale. I don't think the Dolphins would get that lucky. That would be pretty awesome if they could. We'll see what ends up happening, but that is definitely one of the things the Dolphins need to look into. So, that is, and another thing that I want to bring up with the whole Josh Boyer thing, because, and again, this is a whole nother game plan thing. The Dolphins have been exposed, especially since the injury to Brandon Jones, and some of the nickel package stuff. Duke Riley has been asked to do a lot more in coverage this season because of the injuries, and he's been terrible. And I mean, against the 49ers, he was terrible. Against the Bills, he literally, because of his busted coverages, let Josh Allen just dump it down, and they scored a touchdown on that. So that's another thing the Dolphins are going to have to kind of figure out. Hopefully Channing Tindall can kind of come along here, but they need another middle linebacker for sure, or move Jerome Baker back to that kind of position, or get a new defensive coordinator in here, and maybe he'll move. And again, if the Dolphins find someone that's like zone heavy in terms of a scheme, this defense I think fits that perfectly. I think they really it's not like you're gonna have to change the personnel around a whole lot, because the front seven is there, and that translates to any defense. And again, I think they could really benefit from the change as well. So there's a lot of players that they need to retain on defense too, like Christian Wilkins, some of those other guys. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. We still have a lot of podcasts to go. I'm sorry, but that's it for this news story. I'm rambling too much, and that's really it for the news. Honestly, there's really nothing else to talk about in this game, or not in this game, in terms of news that you guys need to know about. There was no significant injuries. Tyreek Hill obviously had an ankle issue with the Chargers. He's healthy. Armstead survived this game healthy. Brandon Shell, Javon Holland obviously had the neck. He seems to be good to go. Obviously, he came back in this game. So no significantly bad injuries to talk about. We do actually have another news story. It's playoff updates, which I'm sure you guys already know, but it's definitely still an interesting topic to talk about. Obviously, the Patriots lost to the Raiders, which was a huge game in one of the weirdest, dumbest ways possible, but they still lost, which brings them to 7-7 and knocks them out of the playoff wild card picture for now. The Jets obviously lost to the Detroit Lions today, which was a big loss for them, and a big loss for the AFC race, which was big for the Dolphins. It was good for the Dolphins, but and then unfortunately the Chargers beat the Titans to move in front of us in the AFC race, which kind of sucks, but that is what it is. Those are your playoff updates. But those two losses by the Jets and Patriots are huge. That's a big deal. Those are big deals. Obviously, the Jets, if they lose another game, that's going to just pretty much put the nail in the coffin. But in terms of how the scenarios look now, we would still have to beat them. But those were still pretty big time losses for them. So let's get into this game. There's a lot I want to break down in this game, and a lot I didn't get to break down. A lot I didn't get to break down last week because I was sick. But a lot to break down in this game. All right, so let's get into this was a heartbreaker. The Bills Dolphins. This was a heartbreaker. The implications of this obviously are huge. If we won this game, it was basically a guaranteed playoff spot, at least in my opinion. To steal one on the road against the Bills, one of the best teams in the NFL. I mean, dude, I probably would have shed a tear. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was a big deal. And to come up just short, I think it was a heartbreaker. But I will say this, and one of the things I want to talk about right off the bat, so I don't forget down the line, is the Mike McDaniel criticism of not running the ball more at the end of the game, and I'm not even going to defend like some of the short yardage play calling. I'm right there with everybody. Like, could he have ran the ball in those situations? Yeah. Should he have? Yes, probably. But at the end of the day, we had 405 total yards in this game. We averaged 7.1 yards per play. We had more time of possession than the Bills did. We had 30 minutes, but basically by like a few seconds, but we still did. We had more time of possession than they did. I thought the game plan was awesome. I thought some of the run stuff from a scheme standpoint was great. If Tua looks to his left earlier in that game, he would have had... it was like a short yardage situation. We were in their territory. It was an under center snap. I think he ended up taking a sack, and we ended up having to settle for 3. It might have been the first points of the game. But if Tua just looks to his left instead of staring at Waddle the entire time, that's a touchdown that we should have had on the board. If Trent Sherfield catches a pass, that's 14 points that we probably should have had that we didn't get. So I think the Mike stuff is a little ridiculous. And I mean, just look at how everyone else has coached this team in Buffalo. That's all you really need to know. I'm really proud of the team. I think one of the things to take away from this game, especially, is the fact that we played really good football, because the last 2 games we've played terrible football, like really bad football. It was nice to see the offense get their mojo back. I mean, we really haven't had it since the second half of that Texans game. We've looked really bad on offense the last few weeks. So it was nice to see, and I think this is definitely a game that you can build off of, and this is when you have to start playing your best football, and I think we can build off of this and continue to kind of get it going, especially since the run game got going in this game. So I just wanted to talk about the Mike stuff because, like I said, I think it's just been a little over the top. I think he's done a great job with this and way surpassed my expectations. Like, way, not even close. Like, I didn't even want him to be our head coach at the time. If you guys have been longtime listeners, and he's completely proved me wrong. That's for sure. So let's get into some of the other offensive stuff. I thought Tua played a lot better in this game. He should have had 3 touchdowns in this game. Honestly, can make an argument. Like I said, he should have probably had 4. But the one of them was not his fault. Obviously, the Trent should have caught that pass. And not to mention the fact the fact that the refs in this game were absolutely ridiculous. They did not call pass interference equally in this game. Let's put it that way. The Bills corners got away with a lot of physical play, to say the least, in this game. So that's something else that I don't know what was going on in that game. But the offensive line played a lot better. I think one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, that the Dolphins have to address is that right tackle position. Austin Jackson clearly isn't the answer. Brandon Schill has outplayed him the entire year. So they're definitely going to have to figure that out, however they do it. I think Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, and obviously Teron Armstead are all guys that we can build off of in the future. Connor's had a great season. He had a really good game in this game as well, against players like Ed Oliver. So that's something that they're definitely going to have to look into. It was really nice to see the run game get going. I didn't know that Raheem Mostert had that kind of playmaking ability in him. Like, we've seen flashes of it, but to that degree, we haven't seen it. He broke a ton of tackles in this game. He looked great. Hopefully, that can kind of get going a little bit here. Ahmed looked really good. Savon Ahmed, he looked really nice in this game as well. Obviously, with that nice rushing touchdown that he had late in the game. So, if those two can get going, and if we can get Jeff Wilson back healthy, obviously, he's dealing with the hip injury, which I forgot to mention with the injury stuff. Which there's no real new update on that. But at least as far as I know, and I'll check that later in the show because maybe something has happened since the last time I checked. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the run game looked really nice, and the offensive line was starting to get pushed. But that's another thing that this team needs is a right tackle, because Brandon Shell, like I said, is just completely outplayed Austin Jackson, and it's not even, I think, a debate. But yeah, a lot of stuff to really, and hopefully they can continue this momentum. Offensively, there's nothing else really to talk about. I was really, really pleased with the way that they played. Obviously, Tua hitting those 2 big plays was huge. He looked a lot better in this game, which is nice. I thought the team did a really good job of adjusting to what defenses were doing against us. That was working, which is playing physical football, throw the timing off, make Tua hold the ball a little bit longer. I thought we had a really nice counter to that in this game. So it shows that, again, Mike's ability to take what teams are doing against him. And again, honestly, I think there were plays that we didn't hit because Tua was playing bad in the last 2 games that we did do to kind of counter it. And since Tua wasn't there, like he was kind of off, I think we kind of got away from that stuff. Like, if you go back and look at the Niners game, and even there was obviously the post to Hill in the Chargers game, there were plays that Tua just didn't hit. Like, if teams are going to play press man against us and play physical like that, we have to take advantage of stuff down the field. And I thought we did a really good job of that in this game. I don't think it was less Mike and it was more Tua on that front. And he was able to take advantage of that in this game, though, to kind of counter some of the stuff that teams have had success against us with. And the last thing I want to talk about is the tight end position before we move on to the defense. That has to be fixed in the offseason. I don't know how they're going to do it. It can't really be through the draft, but maybe whoever is out there in free agency. Mike just doesn't do anything for the scheme. And he's had issues like this in the past, but it's really bad this year because his weaknesses are some of the things that we really need from that position to be successful in this offense. He's never been good at separating in man coverage. He's an awful run after the catch for tight end. He's terrible at it. And he's a really bad blocker. And it sucks because, players like George Kittle, so many tight ends over the years have had great success in the Shanahan scheme. And if you can't be a 3-down player, not only does it hurt the offense because it's kind of a tell if Gesicki's on the field, then it's going to be a pass. So that sucks. But we really can't hide them in the formations and do creative stuff with the tight ends because they're just not any good. And it's been a huge problem all year that needs to be fixed in the offseason. And as much as I love Mike, we've had a lot of great memories. He's made some insane plays over the years in terms of some of the 50-50 balls he's come down with. And even in the Ravens game earlier this season. But he just doesn't do anything well enough in this offense to definitely the stuff that we're paying him in terms of the franchise tag. It doesn't work, and that's something that they're gonna need to address in the offseason. And finding a third guy is something that this team needs to do. Hopefully that's going to be the run game to add another dimension to this offense, because it can't just be Waddle and Hill all the time. And that's why it sucks that players like Eric Azukama haven't done much, because I was really hoping he could be that third guy. But Trent hasn't consistently been that. Craycraft hasn't consistently been that. The run game hasn't consistently been that. Hopefully after this game we can kind of add that to the offense, but because the run game has shown up in certain games, like the Cleveland game, the Jets game early in the year, this game. So it just hasn't been consistent, just like some of the other things. Like Craycraft has been okay in one game, and then Trent Sherfield has a 70-yard touchdown in one game, and then just completely plays terrible the next game. Like, they need an answer and have a more consistent third guy. Cedric Wilson didn't pan out. He had that nice catch in this game, but he's played bad all year. They just haven't been able to find that second or really third consistent thing that they can rely on in the offensive side of the football. Oh, sorry guys, I'm over here moving around too much. And defensively, we kind of covered it. Josh Boyer is just, the thing that we really failed at in this game is we just didn't take advantage of any third and long situations at all. If you look at the stat line, Stephon Diggs had 60 yards in this game with 0 touchdowns. Dawson Knox was their leading receiver with 98 yards. And we just didn't take advantage of third and long situations in this game. They converted 2 really long yardage situations that they shouldn't have. You can't convert a 3rd and 17. And they also had like a 2nd 17 or 2nd 20. And that's really it. We talked about the just no creativity on defense. I thought the front 7 really played out of their mind in this game. With Jalen Phillips has looked great. Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer they're so good, and they did it without Emmanuel Ogbah. It took a while to kind of get them going in this game, but once they got going, they really got going. And Bradley Chubb, he needs to play better. That's for sure. We need him to step up in some of these bigger moments. That's why we're paying him all this money, is to be a playmaker, and we just haven't really seen that in some of the big moments. This year. But it's nice to see Jalen Phillips. He's really coming on as of late, which is nice. I think the front 7 just looks phenomenal, and hopefully that can kind of continue to trend in the right. They made so many monstrous plays in this game, and unfortunately we weren't able to capitalize on all of them, which sucks, but it is what it is. But yeah, the front 7's playing great. We talked about the lack of creativity on defense from a scheme standpoint. We literally play the same coverage every play. We do the same thing every week to week, week in and week out. I don't even know, maybe, I guess the pass protection stuff is the game plan specific stuff that Josh talks about all the time, but it's the same thing every week, and the lack of confusing quarterbacks is really annoying. So I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we covered it all. The flags in this game were, if I could roll my eyes farther back in my head, dude, oh my god, and especially if you guys watched the Giants-Washington game, you just watch other games around the league, it's like, okay, we get called for that, but these teams didn't get called for that. It's ridiculous, dude. It makes me so upset. Especially it was the flag literally decided the game. That's what's the most annoying part about it. Let me look up make sure there's no more Jeff Wilson news. I don't think there's any update on that. Obviously, Javon Holland, he left with that, but he came back, so he's fine. Let's see here. Doesn't seem like there is any new news on that. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans questions to end the show. It's just a super tough loss, dude, to take for sure. It is what it is, though. And again, I think the positive thing to take away from this game is we're playing good football. That we put, again, to take one of the best teams in the NFL on, almost beat them on their home turf. And we've had so much issues playing there. They've hung 56 points on us at one point, with Matt Barkley throwing most of those points. Let's not even get into it. We've had a lot of issues going up to Buffalo, and I think this is a good sign for things to come, for sure. to get us going here a little bit. All right, let's get into the fan Q&A. This first question comes from Ricky. He says, "Why don't we run the ball more? Do you think we should be able to scheme other guys open on offense instead of just Hill and Waddle, or best overall?" Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. This thing just keeps glitching out. Let me restart. Why don't we run the ball more? Again, this question comes from Ricky. Do you think we should be able to scheme other guys open on offense instead of just Hill and Waddle? Our best overall offensive performance of the season was against the Browns, and Hill only had 44 yards in that game. It feels like we forced too many passes to Tyreek, and he gets all the attention. Well, to answer hold on, it keeps going here. Someone else should be able to get open if it's Durham Smythe, even if it's Durham Smythe. Our offense seems just as predictable as our defense these last few games. I disagree with the comment of the predictability of the offense. I disagree with that. I don't think the offense is predictable. But defensively, I definitely agree with that. And to answer your question, why didn't we run the football more or throw the ball to other people more? Like I said earlier, it's just the lack of consistency that those guys have shown throughout the season. Players like Trent Sherfield, River Craycraft, even the run game hasn't been consistent all year. And I think that is why Mike can't feel comfortable going into a game to game plan for certain things to happen because of the lack of consistency of some of those things. It's hard to feel comfortable when they, like I said, they haven't been consistent. So I think that is the answer to the question. They just have to get better players at those positions. And that's something that they're definitely going to have to do in the offseason for sure. But it's not Mike's fault, at least in my opinion. I mean, those guys they haven't been good in any scheme they've been in. And it sucks because Trent looked like he was going to kind of be that third receiving option. And, Cedric Wilson had his best game of his career. And he apparently has been dealing with some, not of his career, but since he's been a Dolphin, his Dolphins career. Hopefully that'll get Cedric Wilson going. And again, if we can just get the run game to be consistent, as consistent as it was in this game, then that's going to be a game changer too. So there are definitely things that have looked better than they have throughout the season. Hopefully Cedric Wilson can get going too. This next question comes from Trey. He says, "Hey Skaggs, do you think it's time for our coaching staff to make changes and adjustments on both sides of the ball moving forward, as teams appear to be doing against us, so we're not so predictable?" I think defensively we're way too predictable. I think the most predictable we've been offensively in a game was the Chargers game. And even that, I think it was less predictable than as much as it was we were just too one-dimensional. And Tua was struggling so much that I think we overcompensated for some of that. But I don't think the offense is predictable. But defensively, I completely agree. And it's too late to make a change defensively. But I do think that's definitely something that they're going to have to look into for the foreseeable future for sure. This next question comes from users, or at user Tusk, or we'll say at user. This next question comes from at user. He says, with a heavy snow. Okay, this is before the Bills game. This was more of a Chargers or after the Chargers game. He says, if Jeff Wilson is injured, do you believe we can get the run game going with Raheem Mostert and Ahmed? Neither have looked great recently, and we ended up getting the run game going against a really good Buffalo Bills front. And again, if we can run on the Bills, who have struggled against the run at times this season, but they are, their front seven is top 3, if not the best in the NFL, maybe only Philly. If you can run on them, and especially with those linebackers, you should be able to run on anybody. So hopefully we can kind of, because teams can't sell out to stop the run against us. That would just be stupid. And if teams want to continue to run this man press stuff, I think at least in this game, Tua was really able to take advantage of that in this game. Like, he hasn't really been able to, he just didn't take advantage of it, and so he just missed too many throws in the previous two. So it again, it's good that Raheem and Ahmed were able to get going in that game. This next question comes from Mark. He says, "Is this who Tua is inconsistent? If so, what would you do about the quarterback position? Would you spend big money on the O-line and free agency cornerback? Would you fire Josh now or after the season?" Well, definitely after the season. And if I could find someone who can come in and replace him, to answer your question, Mark, I'm definitely rolling with Tua. I think that, like I said, we just weren't able to take advantage of some of those physical man looks to throw off the timing. We were able to do that in Buffalo. He took advantage of them and hit those throws, which was obviously a great sign. He could have had 4 touchdowns in this game. One was dropped. He definitely should have had 3, and he just didn't look to his left where he would have had 4. But he should have had 3 touchdowns in this game, almost 300 yards passing. So and against one of the best defenses in the NFL, I think Tua is fine. He just had 2 bad games. And again, Tua's had a phenomenal season. Like, he really has. The best season since 13. Not one of the best seasons since 13 hung up their jersey. Like, it's not even close. Like, you go throughout the entire... I mean, this is way better than Chad Pennington year, the 2016 Tannehill year. It's not even close. If he didn't get hurt, his numbers would look a lot better, especially with those stretch of games against, like, the Jets and Vikings and stuff like that. I think he would have... his numbers would be even better. So I'm completely confident to it for sure, to answer your question, Mark. This next question comes from Jared. He says, "Hey, Skaggs, I'm going to ask the same question from last week because you didn't read it word for word. Is the jury still out on Tua winning road games down the stretch of a playoff push?" Sorry, my throat is bothering me. Yes, I think he's finally got his mojo back in this game. He was struggling with what teams kind of have done to answer some of the stuff that we've done early in the year. I think he took advantage of some of the opportunities that would give us, and hopefully he can continue to do that. But I have faith in Tua. Like I said, he's had a great year. He had 2 bad games. Let's just, it is what it is. Everybody has bad games in the NFL, that's for sure. All right, let's move on to the next question here. This next question comes from SM. He says, "Wolf Fuller last year, Byron Jones this year. What goes on in Miami where players get paydays and never are heard from again?" Well, Byron got his payday when he got here from the Cowboys. So it's not really fair to Byron, but the other two, or some of the other players that in recent memory for sure, you can it is strange. This next question comes from SM. He says, "The 2 calls, the holding at the end of the first half that set up the touchdown, and the pass interference at the end of the game that set up the field goal equals 10 points. Funny how the refs were hands off until the game mattered most. The NFL wants snow games in Buffalo for the playoffs. Thoughts?" I don't know about any of that, but yeah, some of the calls were... The game was not called equally, let's put it that way. And I think that's the thing that made me the most upset. It's like, okay, if you're going to call us for that, then why in the world didn't you call them for that? So they did not call that game fairly. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, we have to fire Josh Boyer. So he's talking about the Chargers play. Alpha says, "The player right before half sealed it for me. That was horrible thoughts." The play where we lined up everybody on the goal line was one of the dumbest defensive calls I've ever seen. Which should have been, and it's another example of a 3rd and long that Josh has messed up throughout the season. This next question comes from SM. He says, "We know there are problems in the secondary, but why do quarterbacks have so much time to throw the ball? That's not the secondary's fault, that's the D-line. No injuries there. What's the problem as you see it?" I disagree with that. I think we've had I think the pressure has been there. I think some of it has to do with the secondary. Against the Bills on the road this game, as the game went on, the pressure got much better. But it's hard to sack Josh Allen. He's probably the hardest player to sack in the NFL. And it is what it is. But I thought the pressure... dude, there were so many plays where either Josh Allen made a play... or there was somebody open quick and Josh just got rid of it. I definitely I don't think you're gonna have to worry about the pass rush. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I did get a new mic. Hopefully it sounds better. I've had to actually re-record the show, which sucks, but because the mic was like, I don't know. Hopefully it didn't mess up this time. But I guess you guys would know that if it gets uploaded or not. I know we've had sound issues in the past. I just wasn't able to fix it because the mic itself wasn't great. But we have gotten a new mic, and hopefully it does sound better. I think as much as this was a heartbreaking loss for Dolphins fans, the rest of the AFC, at least some of the crucial guys, have lost this week as well. And not to mention the fact that I think this is a really good sign. We're finally starting to play good football again. I liked what I've seen from the front seven players like Jalen Phillips. I think are playing better football down the stretch. And the offense has finally kind of gotten back on track, which is great. So I think we're starting to play good football again. And, Mike said that in the press conference after the game, how this was the best game that we've played so far since the bye week. So things are looking up. Even though it was a loss, I think we're playing good football again. So that is it, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below about this game and the future of the I don't know, the team, I guess. I'm tired. Anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.